I think we recently saw that with WikiLeaks. Initially their strategy was let it out, let everybody see it, and let's go for it. And what they found, obviously, is they needed journalists, and especially investigative reporters in many cases, to come in and tell the story.
Investigative reporting is probably the most difficult thing that will be done in any newsroom.
A good investigative reporter has to see patterns in information, be able to analyze masses of data.
Just going through and looking at each nursing home, what happened to staffing, what happened to wages, did they go up, did they go down? What does the empirical data say?
Data analysis just helps us deal with all the information that's coming our way, and it helps us find stories.
There's research, there's analysis, and there's people skills.
He had told me the state agency had no oversight whatsoever.
Paid to protect and selectively log this 24,000 acres.
Nobody was watching over them, and they were just handing out millions and millions of dollars.
We heard that there was a certain city that was conducting DUI checkpoints, and that at the end of it, there were no DUI arrests, but more than 20 vehicle impounds. The vehicle impounds were not for anything to do with intoxication or anything like that.
Most of the unlicensed drivers are undocumented Hispanic immigrants.
Sometimes you'll get leads, but oftentimes you just need to be curious. And that was the case for this story about lead and jewelry, where it was a pretty routine press release announcing that this one company had been cited a number of times for selling lead-tainted jewelry.
And I'm going to have to ask you to step off school.
To be a great investigative reporter, you have to have the right mindset to dive into stories. It takes time, it takes patience, it takes tenacity.
It took us 19 months, 30,000 electronic documents to get to the truth.
This is an enormous state, 38 million people. It's really rare that any organization has the resources to spend months and months to investigate complex problems.
There are maybe 20,000 school projects at least that do not comply with mandatory standards that say that schools are built to be earthquake resistant.
$200 million that had been set aside for seismic repairs to school buildings. Most schools weren't eligible. They didn't meet the strict requirements to get that money.
California Watch has distributed projects through traditional means like television stations statewide.
What's the price of a gallon of gasoline?
Interactive graphics, animation,
online sites for newspapers.
KQED and California Watch have released a new investigative
public radio stories.
Our series on seismic safety in California hit on every single platform.
We were able to take the 10,000 plus schools and overlay those with the seismic hazards around them, and allow all of our partner papers to get local anecdotes and allow readers to see the schools in their area.
The video part of the story
went out to ABC affiliates, KQED Public Television.
Collectively, it reached about 3 million people.
And PBS NewsHour did a report on a national basis.
This iPhone app that we created takes data that we used in the reporting process, and it turned them into a handheld detector that people could use to figure out if there were seismic hazards near their homes.
With the seismic timeline, we really wanted to tell the story visually. We wanted to tell the story behind the story.
We bring a lot of this power inside our own newsroom and are able to do a lot of this work in-house that's allowed us to really flourish.
California Watch's media network has really grown since we started. For example, with our seismic safety story, we produce multiple versions of that stories for partners around the state. By doing that, we've really been able to give them local content and also make them aware of our stories that we're working months in advance so they can really plan their coverage around that.
Ho gets the good news about a double silver ring with a band of
So for every
pearls.
California Watch investigation, we try to make sure the information reaches the people who are most affected by it. In the past, we've had real success by taking a story that had to do with lead and jewelry and actually going into communities and performing lead screenings for the public for free. When we were doing a story on earthquake preparedness in schools, we came up with the idea to do a coloring book in English, Spanish, Vietnamese, traditional, and simplified Chinese for our littlest of readers. We also did different preparedness trainings across the state. California Watch places a real emphasis on on-the-ground, one-on-one human interaction. We send reporters and editors to coffee shops around the state and just have them interact, talk, most importantly, listen.
Our reporting has exposed problems in all aspects aspects of government and society.
We've been able to reach new audiences, from policymakers to activists.
Develop new and innovative ways of opening up data to the public.
Get people in typically hard-to-reach communities to share their life experiences.
Create a new way of conducting investigative reporting and allowing journalists to be sustainable.
Our stories in California are making a difference. They're changing lives.
The state did make changes last year in the budget bill to make sure that the nursing homes get inspected for staffing.
State healthcare regulators are investigating anomalies in Medicare billing.
It made it possible for schools to get access to money.
So they can use it to make their schools safe in an earthquake.
Our reporting has caused 7 California cities to change their impounding practices at checkpoints.
A California state senator has introduced legislation that would tighten enforcement of companies that repeatedly sell lead-tainted jewelry.
It wouldn't have happened without what we wrote, I'm convinced.
We are evolving and keep evolving and to be a much more effective organization in keeping the powerful accountable in California, and also give people information that can influence and help their daily lives. That is what we're doing, or trying to do.